I want to welcome everybody to our session today. And pardon me, it's the International Conference on Stigma. It's HIV in the Black and Hispanic communities. This will be presented to you by myself, Daniel G. Garza, and my partner in crime, uh, Demario, who should be logging in shortly, and I'll make sure that he's ready and available to present. We will be presenting some slides and our presentation, but we will leave space at the end for some Q&A. So Demario Richardson is with us already. So Demario, if you're ready to present and have your slides ready, I'll uh, let you have the screen. But again, for everybody, if you have questions, feel free to use the chat to post any questions. Or at the end, we will have some space available for you to ask anything. Our presentations are not very long because we actually want this to be an interactive dialogue. We want the conversations to happen between all of you watching us and us. Jemiah, hi, good to see you. You're still muted. Again, for those of
Sorry
you
about that.
joining, there you go. For those of you
You
joining us
able to hear me
today,
now?
yes, the presentation
Okay.
is
Maybe it's
HIV in
the
the Black.
earphones.
It's HIV in the Black and Hispanic communities. Demario will go first, and I will follow in my presentation.
All right. I had to log in on my phone. Something happened with my computer. So I would need to share my screen to try to find my slides. So give me 1 second, please. One second. Sorry.
We hope that everybody's enjoying so far this morning, and you're ready for the next several days. And just a heads up, Demario and I will be present there. We both have presentations in person, so if you like this
Yeah.
presentation, make sure you follow us once we get to the conference.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Are you able to see?
yes.
All right. So, like Daniel was saying, we're speaking about HIV in the Black and Hispanic community. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see me yet because I'm only able to see my slides. Okay. So if you see me, um, just you interact as much as you would like. Please utilize your chat box as much as possible because I'm very much so a person that likes to be interactive. I love feedback, constructive feedback as well. Anything that contributes the betterment of our understanding or any type of communication. So I just want to speak briefly about my perspective about HIV in the Black community, specifically the Black and Brown community, of course, because it's where I'm from, that's where I live from. And just going into the next slide, I truly believe that true healing begins when we move beyond the shame. And a lot of that has to do with the people that's gatekeeping our access to care, our access to mental health, our access to just anything dealing with our livelihood. It could be our living situation, homes, food, gas, things of that nature. But when we learn how to reclaim our stories with dignity and compassion, it brings back community. It helps us have dignity and help each other be able to, live and speak and walk more within our truth when it comes to any diagnosis for that matter. So if we can spend 1 second to close our eyes for 1 second and just take a deep breath real quick. We're going to use 3 seconds, maybe five, and just think about a time you felt unseen or misunderstood. It could have been when you were a child. It could have been when you were in your teens. It could be in your adulthood. It could have been yesterday. But just imagine a time that you felt unseen or misunderstood. I'm gonna just take a couple seconds for us to think about that right quick. And then when you come up with the thought, think about that in terms of if it was sacred, or if it was cherished, or was in like the other side of shame. You know what I'm saying? And if you have any stories, or if anybody's ever felt that, and it's really internalized stigma. If you ever felt that, you can drop it in the chat box. How did it make you feel at the time? When you felt like nobody seen you, you felt like you wasn't heard, you felt it could have been anything small. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you can drop in the chat box as well. The other side of that, if it was sacred, how would it make you feel? What emotions would you feel like you would go through? Would it make you feel empowered? Things of that nature. Because at the end of the day, we all internalize stigma in ways that sometimes we don't know that we do, and we do it unconsciously. And sometimes that's where microaggressions or are birthed. So just to get into my story real quick, I was diagnosed with HIV in 2006 in November. My story wasn't too great for me. Um, 8 months before after I was diagnosed, my mother was reported missing, who was still missing to this day. My birthday was yesterday. My mom came up missing 2 weeks ago. I was diagnosed on this, February 6th of '06. So it's just a lot that goes into that. When I was diagnosed, I was what you call a person that was lost to care, because I knew how to make my appointments and I knew how to talk to a case manager, but I just was not trusting the medication. However, I moved to Texas. I try to live a life as if wasn't diagnosed. I wasn't taking care of myself. There's just a lot of things that happened within that journey. By 2015, I'm pretty sure if you're living with HIV, you understand that if you don't take your medication, or if you take it on and off, you build resistance. And in my case, that happened to me. I ended up having cancer, stage 3, in my stomach. I had 2 colostomy reversals. I had 6 surgeries. I think it was 6 weeks of chemo, 42 weeks of radiation. And in that moment is when I decided that I wanted to, live. And that's when I start understanding how to take care of myself, understand what HIV looks like, what it is. When I was diagnosed, I went to about 6 to 8 hospitals. At the time in 2006, they couldn't diagnose you in hospitals. So there was many of times of me laying on the floor, many of the times people walking over me, many times people never helped me, many times I've left the hospital with my symptoms just treated only. When I finally got official diagnosis, it was at an AIDS level. So that just lets you know there, as far as access and as far as the laws and policies that was written back then, it definitely prevented people like me from getting the help and the assistance that I needed. And when I did go to the health department, when they tell you have to go down there with was the people, the surveillance, um, yeah, they treated me like I already knew, like it was nothing, and were very dismissive. It was just a very horrible experience. And this is why I say that we need to have these conversations. But for me, even when I wrote a book called The Power of Storytelling, this is why I feel like we need to heal within our community, because there's so many more people like me that have gone through it, and they still are. I was a retention peer for 6 years here in Kansas City, Missouri. And when I tell you I lived in the streets with most of these people that had no housing, they were substance users, that were living in woods, things of that nature. But my job was to get them back in care. So I was able to build an incentive program and other things to help them alleviate some of the problems that they had going in their life. Because guess what? I was that same person. So that's just a little bit about my story. So when we go into the next slide, and if you guys ever have any questions, I'll leave my email or you can drop it in the chat box. But when we look at fear and silence and misinformation, it causes division, it causes shame. And then I just want to ask you guys, what do you think fuels this cycle, mostly in our experience, whether you're living with HIV or not? I would love to know if you could drop it in the chat box. So the reason why I personally am saying gatekeepers, because although I've been living with HIV for 18 years, I've been in advocacy for 6 to 8 years. And most of the spaces that I go and I frequent, I mean, I don't want to say it in a rude way. It's always taught like there's somebody else doing us wrong. And I don't know if I'm the only one seeing it, but I think it's a lot going on with our own community. We got our own people within our own HIV community that are gatekeepers that hold us from doing the things we need to do to heal, right? So I'm interested in knowing, in your opinion, who you feel holds our stories. Who tells our stories? Why do we tell our stories? Where does that go when we release that? Who profits from our pain? Because you could be a peer or you could be a community health worker. You could be in the streets on the pavement. Yeah, you could be doing it out your heart all day. But who's profiting from that? Because we wouldn't be begging and asking as much as we did if we was being profited from people living with HIV. Who silences our truth? Some people sign disclosure statements. I remember when I was working at a health center, I couldn't. There's a lot of things that I couldn't say, but I'm the person living with HIV. I'm the person that needs to be able to communicate and articulate my story, or even just the education to other people, because this is how you heal. This is how you educate. But who is doing all this? It ain't always the government. It ain't always the people that's holding the policy up there in the government. What about the people within our communities? What about the people within our health departments and at these AIDS service foundations? So for me, when I wrote my book, I realized that storytelling isn't about trauma dumping. It's about truth telling and being dignified with it. When we tell our stories, we humanize statistics and we remind people that we are not case numbers. We are community, right? We all know people make profits off KPIs and they need data to get these grants and things of that nature, and that's fine. But it's 2025 and it is time for us to heal. It is time for us to literally end this epidemic if that's what we want to do. And we have to start from within. So if you can see down at the below, it says ask the audience to write one sentence that start with. If people really know my story, they will understand that. Because you finish that sentence. And I'll start mine by saying if people really knew my story, they will understand that I'm hurt, I'm pained, I feel betrayed by the system in a lot of ways, but I'm also healing. I've given myself grace. I've given myself space to love myself, and I'm giving myself the capacity to help others as well. And that's what I choose to do for the rest of my life. So if you can finish that sentence, that would be great. All right. Healing beyond hurt. So healing means that we got to center our compassion over comparison. We got to build bridges and not barriers. We got to speak with and not about. A lot of times people living with HIV get hired to do these jobs, and we're banging these numbers out and getting these people in the community. And when it's over, it's over. That's it. Or you see the same people in the same room every time. That's not by coincidence, in my opinion. So what is one word that represents healing for you? What, in your opinion, would you think healing would mean for you? So write one word in the chat box, please. And for me, one word for me that will represent healing for me would be reciprocation. So, like Daniel said, we'll be in the DC area in person. If you are there, you can come experience the in-person workshop that I'll be doing, The Power of Storytelling. It's the book I wrote, and it was prompted from me just going through a lot of things and not feeling seen or heard. It was beyond HIV. It was a lot to do with being a Black man in America, a lot to do with my diagnosis, a lot to do with how to navigate a system that never was meant for you. And I'm just being very honest. So it would be very you would get a benefit if you came to the workshop. It's very interactive. I'm going to use a couple inserts out of the book, and we're going to be able to write a mini story in person and be able to be healed and heal. So here's my information. If you ever have any questions, you can always keep in touch with me, like I said. And I'm gonna leave it here. And if there's any questions, you guys can put in the chat box, or you can reach out to me.
Well, Demario, thank
Absolutely.
you for everybody that's joining us. If you didn't catch some of the presentation, Demario will be available as I will. Oh, he's on camera. There we go. You think after all these times working on Zoom, we know where all the buttons are, but I keep forgetting where they are. But again, if you missed some of Demario's presentation, he will be available uh, at the conference. We will both be there on Thursday, so you'll be able to ask any questions. Let me bring up my slides so that you folks can see. Demario, can you tell me if that's available? Pardon me a second. Are you able to see that presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Checking it out. All right. Is it full screen? I have to pull up my notes, but can you see it full screen?
Select the from beginning at the top left.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and pick up my notes from here. All right, give me 1 second, folks. So my presentation, I'm going to go because I can't pull up my notes. So we're going to go from my memory. So welcome. This is the everybody who's here. It's the International Conference on Stigma. So if you were looking for the HIV and the Black communities, you found the right Zoom room. My name is Daniel G. Garza. I am an HIV advocate. I also work in anal cancer and mental health. Time. So my part is empowering the Latino community around HIV. And it's about breaking the stigma and living with dignity. Uh, I'll start by telling you a little bit about my story. So, just as America, I've been living with HIV for the last 25 years. I was diagnosed in September of 2000. And in the beginning, when I was diagnosed, and let me paint the picture for you. I come from a very conservative Latino family, Catholic. My parents were not well educated, so their information and knowledge about what HIV/AIDS was, their information on sex and sexuality was very limited. Uh, so I came out at 17, and just to put it in perspective, my father decided that we would not have the talk because he figured since I was gay, I would not get a woman pregnant. So therefore, the sex talk was not important. Uh, when I was diagnosed, I lived in Houston, Texas, and I remember very clearly being at the hospital. I was at that point for everybody my numbers had dropped to 108 T cells. I weighed 110 pounds. And uh, when the doctor came in to talk to me about my diagnosis, and just for the picture, I was losing a lot of memory. For anybody who's ever been at that age diagnosis, you know your memory starts failing a little bit. I was losing hair. Um, Obviously, I lost a lot of weight. I had a stomach infection. I had developed TB, and the doctor came in with my information. My family was asked to leave the room, but I said, no, please let them stay. Uh, so when the doctor says you have AIDS, my dad, who knows a little bit English, my mom did not know, she passed away several years ago. And my sister, who's bilingual, my sister was the one that was kind of talking to the doctor, and the doctor says you have AIDS, and my dad couldn't quite put the word together, didn't quite understand what that meant. Uh, until my sister, in the best way that she could, and she said that's in Spanish it's like is the fotos, it's the queer thing. And my dad kind of came to about what it was. Um, when my mom heard that, she realized what AIDS was. And for context, this is 2000. all the information they really knew about HIV and AIDS was, if anybody Latinos out there watching the show Cristina, Cristina was the Latino version of the Oprah show, and uh, in a show that had talked about HIV and AIDS being the same, and that you pretty much were going to die. There was no cure at that time. So my parents got really scared, and that was the first time that I felt shame, that I felt the stigma in our community, and I felt like I had to start advocating for myself. And that I was 29 years old, and I really didn't know. I can say it now. I didn't know much about HIV and AIDS. I was very limited in the information that I had. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people still today, we don't know, particularly in the Latino and the gay community, we don't have all the information we need at 40 plus years after HIV. So understanding the stigma, and it's all in the cultural roots. For anybody who is immigrant families, anybody who comes from a tight religious background, where culture, uh, there's a hierarchy where social norms need to be met. You'll understand this. Being Catholic, we don't talk about sex and sexuality. There is no diversity. And if we go back to 2000, we didn't have the pronouns and the diversity that we have today. There wasn't that spectrum of information that there is available now to identify ourselves. And the culture, the machismo, it's very real. And I say this, I also do comedy in health conferences. And in the conference, I talk about that no matter how gay you are, there's still macho blood running in me. And that is very real in my culture, that not only was I gay and had to prove that I was a man, but I had to double prove that I was a man. So the stigma surrounding sexuality, which we know is very connected to HIV, it was very hard to have those conversations. And then the norms that we lived under, although a lot of people think that because the man is the macho of the Latin family, that he runs the household. In my house, it was actually my mother that ran the house. And she was the one that pretty much set the rules for me. But my mom not being able to understand what what being gay was about, what my identity was about. It was very difficult to have those conversations with her and start having that dialogue within the family. So the culture has definitely played a big part, not just in my life, but in my experience in the communities that I work with, that the cultural roots that we are raised under has a big impact in the way we talk about sex, sexuality, identity, HIV, and other health issues, STIs, pregnancies. Even the way I was raised has played a part in the way that I speak to healthcare professionals. I was not taught to be completely honest with my doctor because my mother was not completely honest with her doctor. She was a smoker for many years, and she was told to smoke along many, many times, and she didn't. And I learned that you don't tell the doctor the whole truth. So as I was becoming a independent, when I got my first job with my first insurance, I didn't know how to have an honest conversation with my doctor. So I was not talking about unprotected sex or condom use or other things that were happening to me. So living dignity is about being, uh, I believe, in my understanding, is living with dignity, uh, is being respected for who I am and having a presence in the community. And this is why the resilience and storytelling in the communities, in the Latino and LGBT communities, is so important. Uh, the media plays a big part. We know that politics plays a big part in the way that HIV and AIDS have been exposed to the communities, to the world. We all, if you were around and remember Ronald Reagan in the AIDS epidemic, and he would not say the words, that marked the line. And I do believe that that was where our communities first started to face that adversity of how are we going to make things work. And we still to today, there are places, there are doctors, there are nurses. I've had the experiences where I go to see the doctor, a new doctor, or I have to go get a checkup. And when they see on my paperwork that I'm living with HIV, there's a disconnect. And it, as even at 25 years of as an advocate and being 54 years old, there are times when you're not prepared for that. You're not expecting that the people who are there to take care of you are the ones that are going to reject you. So it's an ongoing battle, and it gets exhausting, and it does cause that mental, physical, and spiritual burnout, which we're going to talk about in my presentation on Thursday. So the language is power, the fears to facts, and shame to strength. And this is about reframing how we talk about HIV. And one of the simplest things that we can talk about is living with HIV versus HIV positive, or a person with HIV. That we are living with them. People use a lot of terms, and please, whatever feels comfortable, real. This is about your dignity, your respect, and breaking down that stigma. I like telling people that I live with HIV. I've been living with HIV for the last 25 years, and I've made a career out of talking about my diagnosis. Just as working in anal cancer, I've created a career out of that. And people think, well, what's wrong with anal cancer? When I tell people I have cancer, there's a big support system available. But the moment I mention anal cancer, it is associated with my sexuality. It's something that I did wrong. If people are religious, it's a punishment for being gay. So I very much push when I'm being introduced or presented that people use anal cancer as it. So I want people to hear it and be aware of it. And I was so honored and to be part of a PSA that it's out on social media. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you can see the video. We did a PSA a couple of months ago on anal cancer. And I think we say anal cancer a minimum of 20 times in that video. So the way that you speak, the way that I speak, gives us that power. And I'm an energy worker, I'm a Reiki master, so I very much believe in taking back that power. So the tools for empowerment: testing, treatment, and support. And this goes for both sides. We sometimes talk about how difficult it is to get a support group together and how hard it is to bring people together, particularly in different languages or different ethnic groups or different religions. And that is because sometimes, as we talked earlier, that cultural, those roots make it so hard to be able to be part of support group and talk so intimately about what is happening with us. Sometimes we don't want to tell our deepest secrets. But if we encourage people who are not living with HIV to get tested and start those conversations, that's a good way to open up that advocacy bone that we have. If you are watching this and you're like, I don't know how to be an advocate, start having the conversations. It doesn't have to all be in our community. We can step outside and encourage people to get tested. If we know somebody who has tested positive for HIV and they are now living with HIV, culture again may stop them from seeking treatment, from going to the doctor. Encouraging them. If you have a good doctor, if you have a good treatment, somewhere where you like to receive services, those are your tools. That's what empowers you. And having the right support system. The support system doesn't have to be a whole group of people. It can be two people having a conversation about HIV and your treatment and how to take care of yourself. Talk about identity, talking about sex and sexuality with the HIV. Many people have discovered their new identities once they have received a positive diagnosis. So use your tools. What is your power? Is it writing? Just like Damaris wrote a book. Like, can you write a book? Can you do videos? Are you on TikTok? What can you use to spread the message? And I understand not everybody is able to be in front of a camera or write their story, but maybe you can support somebody that is doing it already and be that. So this is where the humor, storytelling, and art. And I put this together because, like I said, I do stand-up comedy. I started doing comedy here in Hollywood, in North Hollywood, some of the clubs. When COVID came and I wasn't being called back, I had to get creative. And one day at a health conference, there was an open mic opportunity. I took the chance and started talking about my health issues, and people started to laugh because I do believe that within the healing, within our healing, laughter is part of it. There are times when I take myself way too serious and I need to step back and really see at the comedy of life. For those of you who really think God has a great sense of humor, and I know that I'm the butt of his jokes sometimes. Storytelling is a great way to show, and not every story is going to have a happy ending. Not every story is going to end on a high note. Some of us are still in the battle, in the journey, trying to cross that bridge. So, what is your story? And again, you don't have to be a professional great writer. You don't have to publish a whole book if you can't. Just sharing your story little by little, particularly in environments where it normally would not, like churches or uh, groups where sex and sexuality or HIV would not be discussed. And art, we have seen it. There's artwork uh, across the country, around the world. If you have been to a World AIDS Summit or if you've been to USCHA, you know that art is a big part of our healing. If you don't have the words, uh, use the colors. And in fact, my workshop on Thursday, Draw Your Energy, we are going to be coloring. So if you are inclined to do that, please join me on Thursday. Call to action. Let's break the stigma. Damaris and I are two of thousands of people out there telling our story. Uh, all kinds of stories, from HIV to cancer to diabetes to mental health. The more we share, the easier it is to talk about it, and not everything has to be so structured. You don't have to be perfect. I know I'm not perfect. Right now, as putting this together, I realized that I did not print out my notes. So this is all by memory. It's a good thing that I worked on it quite a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Breaking down the stigma, there's really no major handbook or guidebook. We all kind of did it by trial and error. And this is the way that I like to do presenting. So do whatever you can, however you can. Um, and again, if it's not something that's natural for you, support somebody who's already doing it and see how can you be of support to them. But we all have talents and skills that we can use. So this is your time to put on your super cape and do something. So I'm going to close this up by opening up. I see on the chat that we have a couple of uh, comments or questions. So I'm going to invite Demario to come back on screen and see if we have some comments or questions. Have you been keeping an eye by any chance?
Yeah, I've been going through.
Anything caught your eye?
Francesca had asked, if I'm saying it correctly, excuse me. May I ask, as a white woman of trans experience, should I remain silent or just observe? I need to be respectful of your request and ask.
Okay. And you responded to her, right?
Yeah, I replied by saying, I don't believe being silent is necessary if that's not your will or your position. If you want to step up and be an ally, I definitely don't think you should be quiet. I know a lot of the things that I experienced were years ago, so I've healed from a lot of things. So in my opinion, I'm not the type of person that don't want to not just work with anybody. I think we all can change this, but it's also important to be able to hear everyone's story to see where it comes or where it's rooted from.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, like just about everybody is like 1 or 2 degrees from somebody from talking about HIV who is living with HIV, particularly in the, as I call it, the alphabet community, LGBTQIA community. We all might know somebody. So no, you don't have to stay quiet. We do have to be respectful. I do believe respect is one of the main things. But if you know something, you see something, if you have, we're all looking for solutions. We know the problems. We're looking for solutions. So, Francesca, don't be silent. If your nature is to speak up and speak out, go
Or
for it.
tell your neighbor, because if you can't say it, somebody else will.
Yeah, yeah. And then we fall, going back to both our presentations, when we who have some solutions don't say something, somebody who has more criticisms, and we know, we live in that. It'll be foolish for Demario and I to not acknowledge that we live in a political climate right now that folks are just waiting for anybody to make a mistake to jump on you. So what better than to come with a solution than wait for somebody to highlight a problem? Does that make sense, Demario? And
That was a great question.
President, yes, did you want to say something?
Well, what I will say is this, because it's not allowing me to turn on my video, but you can hear me. I'm in a session later, but I just, no matter what my identity is, I realize we are all connected in some way, some form, but it's still, it is in some form, some shape or way where
I think we lost her. I think we lost you, but if you get back, I want to, for people if you're following the chat, please feel free to jump in and chat with us or comment.
Yeah,
oh,
share
I'm
some.
sorry, here I
There she
am.
is.
I'm
Welcome back.
here with my big fat sassy self and my
Love the glasses.
new computer glasses. I should learn comedy from you because I get told I should do stand up. Maybe we should do something. But
Yep.
what I will say is, more often than not, I find myself in groups where I'm the white girl, the white trans girl, but I never want to step on toes. I'm always like, should I be respectful? Should I be silent? Because you always want to do the right thing. You don't want to piss somebody off. So that's why I asked. The question was being respectful, because coming into some places and you're told, come in, observe, but don't say a word. And that's okay too, but I've also had to learn, ask before speak, like a little child.
If it's
It's
about
kind of
us, we
going
should
going
always be at
back
the
to
table
being
to
a
speak.
child. Ask before speaking.
Right. If it's about us, we should always be at the tables to speak. That's one of the issues, and that's why there's MIPA involved, because there is a lot of conversation that goes on, and sometimes it look like we're a part of the conversation, and it's not, because then there's another conversation behind the conversation that we're not at. So I would always walk in the room saying something because, in my opinion, I mean, I just feel like, and this is not a disrespect, people in the HIV community is like being led like cattle. You know what I mean? Like just using
Oh,
us and
I
all this.
know it.
There's so many millions of dollars in the community. How there's so many people struggling and hungry and know where to stay. So many people going through issues, and it's mostly more so Black and brown people. So where's that money being funneled? So we can't keep blaming just the government, because if the government is giving the money away, where is it going and who's doing what with it?
I can tell you where it's going. It's going to people who who are making decisions about us and for us without us, and they're
Exactly.
limiting numbers being at the table. And the more I sit at those tables and I push for things, the more I get told, well, we're doing this, we're doing that. And then I respond with, well, well, and what you're doing isn't working because folks are not showing up.
Then it's get
And
on
I
the
think this
planning
is where,
council.
go ahead. I think
Sorry.
this is where you just answered your, like, when we come to the tables, and for everybody, like this presentation is about our cultures, our backgrounds, our roots, and how HIV has impacted us. Uh, in answering to Francesca, I believe, and I can only speak for me, the point of view of the way that I perceive things. I'm not speaking for all Latinos, although sometimes I feel like I do. But uh, when you come to our table and you talk at us and you try to educate us on our culture and the way that we were brought up, or the way our religion is, or the importance, how sometimes in my religion I grew up in this where it was God first, you ask God first, and then you go to the doctor. And so when somebody who is not of our culture comes to the table as a guest and um, talks at us instead of with us, and is trying to educate us instead of trying to learn as well. I think that's where the problem is, because we all know, we've heard this, HIV does not discriminate. It does not care what color, religion, or background you come from. Uh, so if you have a solution, I think, and I saw some hearts coming up, so I'm saying, I'm taking that as a good sign. Uh, we want to have a conversation. Like Demario and I learned some stuff from listening to him and from this time that we worked together. And I hope that he's learned some things from me that maybe he didn't know about the Latino community. Uh, but we never would want to cross the line and say, well, Demario, actually, let me tell you how you were brought up. Yes, maybe that's how it happened, but maybe, because I believe that, especially like in the healthcare field, sometimes that's why we disconnect from our doctors and the healthcare professionals, because they don't understand. It took me, I've had my doctor for about 6 years now, and it took a couple of sessions to educate him and go,
Mhm.
he's Korean, I'm Mexican, and I'm like, let's find the middle ground. And we did.
I will just reiterate that's what is the commonality, or the I don't want to say lowest common denominator, but the highest common denominator is finding relatability, because as trans people, we're always told, well, you didn't receive the love at home, you didn't go to church, blah blah blah. But very similar to you is when you say, don't be coming and talking at me. It's about finding how we rise together, and
What
we don't attack.
What about the policies and the law bylaws? Is because a lot of ways, a lot of reasons some people speak the way they speak is because they're bound by some of the policies that they're under, whether it be a doctor, whether it be a therapist, whether it may be, a business owner, someone from the community. And that be some of my question is like, where are you coming from with your message? Because if you're coming and speaking to me as a human, that's different than you're coming to speak to me in your profession, right? Because then in your profession, you're coming to try to get a fact or a number to me, in my opinion. So that's why I push for healing, because if we can't understand each other as humans, we can't understand each other no other way. And I just felt like that's what they do with us. And I say us because, again, I've been doing this, living with this for 18 years and only been able to fight for it for 6. And the things that I've seen, a lot of the drama has been in the community, not a lot so where the fingers being pointed.
And I want to mark Emmanuel. Thank you for the comment. I definitely love the fact that you push for anal cancer screening. Yes, that is. If I can touch a little bit on that, going back to the cultural roots, the machismo. Anal screening involves sometimes probing, and for a lot of men, uh, they will not. They will not accept. They will not like to be probed, particularly machos. Uh, Mexicanos, like, no vamos. ¿Cómo van a hacer eso? How are you going to do that to me? And if there is not that openness in the conversations, and this, I think this goes across the board. Again, I speak about HIV, I speak about anal cancer, mental health. I also live with an ostomy, so that's another conversation that I have. And there's when the person that I'm trying to talk with and have a discussion puts up those barriers, and and I've gotten to the point where I don't see the fault if this is the way you were raised, if this is all you know culturally, religiously, and your social norms, as we were talking right now, I can't tell you you're wrong, because that's the way that you lived all the life. It's like, again, I'm using DeMario as, like, if I come to DeMario, it's like, well, the way you're thinking is just wrong. You need to change everything. And he's like, how am I supposed to change all these years of lived experience just because you say so? And I'll put this, I'm diabetic too. I'm stage type 2 diabetes. And when I was diagnosed, um, I'm gonna put myself out there. It was a white lady who was telling me that I should stop eating tortillas, rice, and beans. And I felt so insulted. I was like, how dare you? Rice, beans, and salsa. That's my culture. Like almost every meal has to have rice, beans, and tortillas. And it wasn't until I did a study for diabetes, and the person doing the test was a Latina. She looked like my cousin, and we were talking, and the way that she explained how I didn't have to have tacos every day for dinner, how I could really reduce, and that reducing the meals did not reduce my roots. That not eating all that sugar was not going to take away my Mexicanness. It made a difference, but again, we go back to being uh, talked to. I mean, not talked to, but not talked at, but talked to. And there's the difference. I saw somebody else come on the screen. I wonder if somebody else had any comments or questions that they'd like to share. Tomorrow, has anybody ever tried to change your roots?
Well, and I know a lot of times it's always feedback of like the angry black men type thing or aggressive when I'm really just a passionate person. When I go in areas and I speak, especially now because I'm coming from a place of like, damn, I'm just waking up, like I'm coming late to the game. So, yeah, when I speak, I'm passionate about speaking, but I got a lot of pushback because people will think I'm trying to be aggressive or I'm being an angry black man, and that's like nowhere near my upbringing or how I'm raised. I can be angry, but that's not where I come from when I'm trying to educate and I'm trying to talk to other people about diagnosis. And I can share that I've experienced the same thing as far as anal cancer, so I understand 100% what it feels like and um, what it, how it feels to go through it and how to be like just to get back to normal. Because people unconsciously are they judge, and people also they use microaggressions and don't know that they do it. So it's like if you don't speak up and say something, if you don't, either way it go, you still gonna feel some type of way about yourself. So if you want to be dignified or if you want to feel like you've done, for me, if I when I feel like I'll step in the room and say something, I feel like I've done my part. Because if I don't say something, I'm gonna go home and I'll eat myself up in bed, and then I'm gonna be mad or crying or something. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And since we have a little time, I will tell you, because I talked earlier, and this makes sense. Like, I walk away and I'm like, dang it, I should have said this. I should, but for instance, with doctors, uh, I used to walk away thinking, uh, I just hit my first year from beating it. Or something. Emmanuel, congratulations on beating cancer. Um, I'll give you all this quick story. My mother, God bless her soul, she was a smoker. All my childhood, she was a smoker. I never saw my mother without a cigarette and a cup of coffee. And when we would go to the doctor, for those of you who are children of immigrants, um, I always say, by the time you're 7 year old, if you're not a fully licensed certified translator, what are you doing with your life? Because my sister and I were translators for my mom. And we would go to the doctor with my mom, and the doctor would say, ask my mom, do you smoke? And if you know, my mom used to smoke Pall Mall unfiltered. If you know about cigarettes, those are strong cigarettes. The woman was a walking ashtray, and she knew it. But we would go to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Do you smoke?" And I would translate, like, "El doctor quiere saber si fuma." The doctor wants to know if you smoke. My mom said, "Well, tell him I don't." And I would be like, "Woman, he can smell you." And I would turn to the doctor and say, "My mom says she doesn't." And my mom, and he would be like, is she telling you to tell me she doesn't smoke? Or does she really not smoke? And I remember just, I remember just going, can you not smell? Like, Like, okay, and like, and my mom would like pinch me. What is he saying? ¿Qué está diciendo? I'm like, well, he wants to know if you really don't smoke, or are you telling me to tell him that you don't smoke? And my mom's like, well, tell him that I don't smoke. Like, well, my mom says to tell you that no, she doesn't smoke, and the doctor's like, well, if she does smoke, tell her that while she's taking this medication, she can't smoke because it's it's her cough or whatever. And but that's how I learned how I learned to treat doctors. In my household, there were three people you trusted and lied to. It was the doctor, your priest, and the IRS. You never told the whole truth, but you always showed up like you were being completely honest. And but that's how I learned. So as I was growing up, and we talk about I talked about handing over our power. When I first got my first job where I had insurance and I could go to the doctor by myself, I learned from my mom how to lie to the doctor. And that's what I would do. And I was a drug addict and alcoholic. I've been 18 years clean and sober now. But at that time, I was drinking, I was smoking. By the time I was 20, I was doing drugs. And um, I never was honest. So when I was diagnosed with AIDS, I was still lying to my doctors. They didn't, I mean, they print out the reports and they bring you the reports. I'm like, no, that's not me. That was be another Daniel G. Garza because that's not me. But now at 54, I have learned, like Demario said, I have learned that I need to speak up before I walk out of that office. Even if I think the question is dumb, even if I've heard the answer 100 times, I still want to walk out knowing exactly how it's affected me. So we have another comment here. As a peer educator, I found out a lot of people think the health system is an extension of the just right. Yeah, yeah. I definitely thought that. I was like, if I tell my doctor I'm doing drugs, he's going to call the police and they're going to be waiting for me in the parking lot. But it's true. And we live in scary times now too, where Latinos don't want to be
Right.
completely honest with their doctors.
Well, you look
Right,
at the when you look, I'm always into the policies and the stuff, but when you look at the insurances and stuff, depending on how your doctors write your substance use orders and things of that nature, that's a whole nother conversation, but it's stigmatized because if you're at a job for so many years and you're going to get treatment, you don't even have an idea that they will fire you because you're using too many benefits. And so in short. So little stuff like that is what I'm talking about that systematically keeps us from getting access to care, the things that we need, because it's not really where they're trying to point the fingers in these other areas, like how we get housing, how we get our insurance. If we ask for help, how's the help being given to us and how are we being judged for it? You know what I'm saying? It took 10, 12 years for me to understand that, okay, a pill is saving my life. Why did it take so long for me to understand that? They had to take surgeries and cancers and all of that because people want more money. And that's why I get passionate about the conversation because I know the truth now.
yeah, yeah. Well, we have a couple more comments. Advocating for yourself. Also, yes, you got to speak up for yourself. And if you, I say this to people now, like if you cannot speak freely to your doctor about what's happening with your health, you need to find another doctor. Like you need to, if you can, obviously, if you're in a place where you can, because if you can't walk into your doctor's office and be like my mother, don't be my mother. But speak for yourself. Demand extended appointment times. Yeah, we're not kind of, yeah, sometimes we're limited. I definitely, I don't demand MySpace, but I definitely call for MySpace. I don't know how you are, Demario, but my doctor knows we're going to chat. Sit down. Like, we're going to have a little conversation. Um, Immigrant children being sort of a social, yes. And I was looking through some of the photos on people watching, and I see different cultures. So if you are from a different culture and your parents were immigrants, you know that if you're by 7 years old, I think by now we should all get a certification like a badge. I'm the original translator. I should do that. And don't be afraid to report EEOC and yeah. If something is not right. Have you ever fired a doctor, Demario, because you didn't receive proper treatment?
Oh, many of the times. I had a doctor that came in and told me because I had a bump on my arm that I had AIDS, and it was AIDS because he'd been a doctor for 20 years, and that's just what it is. And then he was in the hallway, told everybody. The person that actually alleviated the whole chaos was what they call those students in training that was haven't
Enter.
graduated from school yet. But that she actually had to come in and ease the pain because I was so embarrassed, and it was the place I worked at the time. And he like just it was a weekend, a Saturday, and he like, no, it's AIDS. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 27 years. I'm like, well, why am I coming to a dermatologist if this is how you're talking to me? You don't want to even what's it called? You don't want to talk with me, excuse me, you're talking at me. So it's like same with anything else. If I needed a medication and I needed something, you're telling me I can't get it because you think because you've been doing this work for 20 years, you're still using outdated language that we don't even use no more in the HIV community. So what have you been doing with your career then?
Yeah.
But you coming and telling me that I got AIDS because you don't want to give me no medication or a surgery or something. I didn't understand it. But I fired him, and then we end up putting him through the power of language class. So it's about microaggressions and internalized stigma and things like that. And I guess he learned.
I had when my last doctor retired, he was referring me to other doctors to see if I liked one. I went to one, and he was asking me to go down the list of diagnoses and situation and things that were, and I was giving him a list. At one point, he stopped me and says, "I think now you can just stop making up stuff." And I just, yeah, I froze for a second, and we were he got up and started walking out. He's like, let's make an appointment to come back. And he walked away, and I looked at the reception. I said, I'm not making another appointment. I won't be coming back. And she was like, oh. So no sooner had I gotten out of the parking lot that he was calling me on the phone and saying, why aren't you coming back? I'm like, well, if you're not going to believe, I know my body. At this point, it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I was 20 years living with HIV. I'm like, 20 years. I know what's happening with my body. There's paperwork that says my
Right.
diagnosis. Like, why would you? Why would I purposely make up new things? Like, what am I going to go say? I'm pregnant. Like, I'm going to
Right.
menopause. Like, I don't know. So he was like,
If you also look at the social determinants of health, then you know that a lot of people have issues with getting to their appointments, especially those that are houseless. What I don't like is that 3 time missing your appointment thing, and then they kick you out. Like that's what makes me fire them too. I could miss an appointment because I don't have a ride, but you're gonna send me a letter and threaten me that you're gonna release me because I missed an appointment. Well, you don't get my service no more. How you tell me I can't come because of a issue that I can't deal with? If I don't have a car or if I don't, whatever, you're telling me 3rd time, then you're kicked out. I never understood that. I've been writing all kind of hospitals and medical places that has that policy. Like, why are you guys telling people they can't come if they miss their 3rd appointment if they're already a lost to care client? It doesn't make sense. But I fired some people before because I missed the appointment. They told me you missed it again, and we're releasing you. Well, bye. I'm gone.
Lizzie has a comment. She said, I did because I felt they weren't listening to me and just feeding meds and not sending me to the right connections. I've been through that, yeah. And she added, or out of pocket $50 fee. Yeah, I hate. Yeah, those surprises when you show up, you're like, I don't have a copay. Like, what's going on? Francesca, you have one last comment before we leave?
Just have a couple things for y'all. I just want to share as much as we fire, we need to interview because, in a personal experience, interview your doctor, ask them what their cultural competency is, what do they know about you, and if they don't know, what are they willing to learn? Because I will tell you, I had this experience. I met a doctor and she said, I will tell you, I don't know anything about trans people, but she said, what I am doing is my husband and my kids are going away for the weekend to the in-laws, and I'm spending all weekend. Can I schedule you to come back Monday? And can we have a conversation? And she said, I want to provide lunch. and I want to share what I've learned. So
That's amazing.
don't be afraid to interview. And Demario, just as you said about firing them because of the 3 missed appointments, I don't think it's necessarily from their office. It may be from the Medicare or the Medicaid guidelines and how Medicare or Medicaid may be paying them, that they're making them cancel those appointments. So it is just, if you know you're going to have a problem or there's a problem, ask them if they provide Uber, because a lot of places can provide Uber rather than bus passes now.
Thank you,
And
Francesco.
in my area, we can provide Uber rather than the bus pass if you want that for a safety reason, etc.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Thank you for being here too. We're down to the last 4 minutes. Demario, do you have last thoughts before we come?
No, I just appreciate you guys allowing us to share our stories and just be able to commune with each other. Hopefully, I'll be able to meet some of you guys in person. I would love to be in contact, and maybe we all could work together. I'm all good for camaraderie and working with people. So I do thank you guys. I think this is like my second time ever speaking publicly about my diagnosis as far as what I've been through. So thank you guys.
For everybody, we want to thank Patricia Houston for the invitation and the International Conference on Stigma for allowing us to have this space. We want to thank all of you for joining us, particularly for those of you in the West Coast, because we got up really early today to be here. Thank you so much. Again, we will both be there Thursday live. So if you're attending live, please come to our workshops. We really appreciate it. Join us. Look at the agenda for more information. Enjoy the rest of the conference. If this is your first time, welcome. You're going to learn a lot. If you're a returning attendant, thank you for coming back. This is my 3rd year, I believe, with this conference, and I really do enjoy it. Everybody, thank you so much for your time. Tomorrow, it's a pleasure working with you,
Thank
sir.
you.
I will talk to
You
you later.
too. Y'all have a
Bye-bye,
good one.
everybody.
Be blessed.